Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Sean David Correa Martel, and I'm the Graduate Pipeline Coordinator at the Office for Graduate Diversity here at UC Berkeley. First, I want to thank you all for joining us for this Graduate Experience Diversity session, Native at Cal. As a reminder, live captioning is available, and this session is being recorded. As questions come up for you, please put them in the Q&A. It may not be possible for us to address all of your questions, but you can always reach out to the Office for Graduate Diversity at grad.diversity@berkeley.edu. Or you can also reach out to our diversity and community fellows who are here as current graduate students, willing and able to support you in your transition to Cal or UC Berkeley, if you decide to join us. With that being said, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Patrick Naranjo, Director of the American Indian Graduate Program.
Welcome everybody to Native at Cal and the Experience Diversity Series. I want to start off by mentioning that AIGP is a resource directly for you. You can email me with any questions that you have that you may not want to share on this session. And again, there are no little questions or big questions. Please have your home folks contact me and let me know how I can assist with your time here at Berkeley. So as we always need to begin with our session, I want to acknowledge the traditional stewards of the UC Berkeley landscape. The American Indian Graduate Program and the Office of Graduate Diversity recognize that UC Berkeley sits on the territory of the Huchun, the original landscape of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people, the successors of the sovereign Verona Band of Alameda County. This region continues to be of great importance to the Muwekma Ohlone tribe and other familial descendants of the Verona Band. We recognize that every member of the Berkeley community has and continues to benefit from the use and occupation of this land since the institution's founding in 1868. Consistent with our values of community, inclusion, and diversity, we have a responsibility to acknowledge and make visible the university's relationship to Native peoples. As members of the Berkeley Graduate Division community, it is vitally important that we not only recognize the history of the land upon which we stand, but also we recognize that the Muwekma Ohlone people are alive and flourishing members of the Berkeley and broader Bay Area communities today. So welcome to Native at Cal, everyone. Navi Toa Hapawingia Namu. I'm from Santa Clara Pueblo. My name is Patrick Naranjo. I am a guest here in the state of California to do this work. A little background information from me. I'm very big on intersectional programming. I am a tribal member from Santa Clara Pueblo, but I'm also half Latino, right? My mother was a nurse that worked at Indian Health Service, did wonderful community engagement with all of the Pueblos in New Mexico. And that is something that I am very big on here at Berkeley, and I'll talk a little bit more about. I'm a graduate from Haskell Indian Nations University, which is a tribal college located in Lawrence, Kansas. Also a proud football alumni member of that community. But I like to mention my experience as a tribal college graduate in terms of how that informs the role of AIGP, which I currently serve as the director, and how the narrative of Indian education fits here at Berkeley and also complements, how do I say this, the intersection, if you will, of indigeneity and the academy at this time. Spent a lot of time at my previous institution. Well, let me back up. I'm also a graduate from UCLA. I maintain a particular emphasis in cultural property protection, in particular, tribal cultural property protection. Wrote a very controversial paper around my home community of Santa Clara Pueblo, was able to go home based off of that experience, but wrote a dissertation about cultural appropriation and how that kind of fits to our education experience, right? Why do we come to these spaces to highlight these topics? But then also, how do we reframe some of that information for the home communities that we come from and the worldviews or the epistemologies that we maintain? Then transitioned into the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, where I was the tribal liaison and assistant ombuds for quite some time. I also am a founding member of the UNLV Intersection, which is an academic multicultural resource center in Southern Nevada at UNLV. Again, also very excited to be transparent in this role and also in a dual capacity as the director of the American Indian Graduate Program. I'm also the system-wide committee rep for UC Berkeley in terms of improving repatriation efforts around NAGPRA, or the Native American Graves Protection Repatriation Act. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick administrative run through of the AIGP program. Would love to pause, introduce Tvetni Carlson, who's one of our awesome PhD students here on campus. And then I think open the forum up for questions. Again, if you do not feel comfortable in this session asking questions on, on a recorded venue, you can please email me directly, and we can schedule some time for either a phone conversation or some Zoom. So let's begin. So a part of UC Berkeley's mission to foster academic excellence, as a part of UC Berkeley's mission to foster academic excellence through diversity, the American Indian Graduate Program, AIGP, provides you with service and advocacy to remove barriers that prevent the full participation of Indigenous, American Indian, and Alaska Native students participating in graduate level research here at UC Berkeley. The program was first started in 1971, right, in the School of Public Health. This initiative was developed with the intention to respond to a need for more American Indian and Alaska Natives professionals, right, to enter them into graduate study with a particular need for healthcare from the public health sector. So AIGP started in 1971 and has since created outstanding alumni that do wonderful things throughout the country, which I'll talk a little bit more at the close of the presentation. The current AIGP program is a unique program whose mission is to increase the number of American Indian students who apply, enroll, and graduate at Berkeley. Again, I mentioned the intersectional approach towards reinforcing a graduate student perspective and infrastructure here at UC Berkeley, right? Now, what this means is this celebrates and highlights Indigenous applications within graduate level research, all levels of graduate level research, to ensure full student participation, right? This is demonstrated by providing mentorship and facilitating the specific campus resources and members of the Berkeley Native community so that all diverse, intersectional, Indigenous identified students can realize their full academic potential in a safe campus setting, right? An intersectional approach regarding indigeneity removes colonial constructs and boundaries and really emphasizes more of a contemporary lens around identity and support. The American Indian Graduate Program has fostered new approaches towards Berkeley research that can integrate diverse ways of knowing and inclusion of Indigenous methodologies and concepts of tribal stewardship within the academy that are both aligned with professional career goals and obviously your academic research interests. Very excited to have Tvetni Carlson from Cantwell, Alaska, to talk a little bit more about that professionalism as a graduate student. One of the, let me pause for a second. Please find me on Facebook, Instagram, and again, you can contact me directly at pnaranjo@berkeley.edu or the program email at aigp@berkeley.edu. Facebook is where we really highlight more of the new news that's happening in Indian country, if you will. And so I encourage folks to follow us on Facebook to get a sense of some of the contemporary topics that we share and I think entertain here at Berkeley. So moving along, secondary, I will also talk about the Native Fuse Alliance a little bit more in depth, but let me get to that part. I have some very specific goals for the AIGP program, right? Goal number one is to directly enhance the graduate education experience for Native American Indigenous students in all colleges and schools in efforts to transform the intellectual atmosphere and climate here at Berkeley. This provides greater opportunities for Native Indigenous students nationally, internationally, and regionally to create a significant cultural and economic impact on behalf of the program. The AIGP efforts visibly centralize graduate level resources, departments, and community to enhance Indigenous student navigation and further the commitment for Native American individuals at Berkeley on behalf of their home communities. AIGP maintains appropriate recruitment and outreach strategies that are designed to increase critical mass, particularly fields central to growing Berkeley graduate level scholarship and sustaining Native American economic and cultural life. This effort is now aligned with the new NAOP tuition program as a resource to support this transparency here at Berkeley. And my efforts in AIGP are to work individually with you to highlight graduate programs and develop ongoing trainings and workshops and other program initiatives to foster excellence around your student experience here at Berkeley, to make the most of the resources, and to really, I think, create foster a place of excellence around engagement and Indigenous diversity. We'll increase the number of Native graduate students to be proportionate to Berkeley's growth in the diverse graduate student body, and identify and seek resources for growing the Native American community. The NAOP is a fairly new effort here within the UC system. We're in our third year, I believe, here at UC Berkeley in terms of highlighting that resource, but the AIGP program is here to also, work with you to coordinate your criteria to the Financial Aid and Scholarships Office for NAOP eligibility, but to also seek additional fund sources, right, that may or may not be covered by the Native American Opportunity Program. One of the partnerships that I want to highlight, that I will highlight as we move along the presentation, is a partnership with Native Forward, formerly known as the American Indian Graduate Program. There's American Indian Graduate Consortium, forgive me. They're now Native Forward. We have about 30 recipients of scholarships here at UC Berkeley. And so we're going to be considering partnerships as some of these resources are implemented in our campus. So to be specific, right, AIGP reinforces these appropriate recruitment outreach strategies to increase critical mass within various international, Indigenous, national, tribal, Cal State, non-Fed, non-recognized entities to support contemporary applications for the Indigenous graduate student experience. This recruitment retention model will serve as an ongoing application on behalf of AIGP to provide visibility towards existing fields in academia that are central to growing graduate student level research, and better support our Indigenous students and their scholarship in a transparent method. The idea is to elevate these research topics that sustain Native American, Indigenous communities and identities, and cultural worldviews, right, that can remove barriers so that these kinds of relationships and individuals can flourish in an academic community such as UC Berkeley. So I will totally stop right there. Again, I know I said a lot about the AIGP program, and I'm very excited to have Tvetni Carlson with us today to talk a little bit more about the graduate student experience. One thing I want to mention, right, very specifically, I am a resource, and we have a huge community of outstanding graduate student professionals that are here at campus. Many of them are multidisciplinary, engaged in various different forms of research. But what I want to highlight for you is that we have access to a lot of different folks that can give you that internal guidance as you arrive to campus, as you consider new things, so that you don't feel like you're alone within this space, but that you also have information and colleagues that can help you to navigate some of the difficult parts and to also support you in terms of thinking of what you need to improve your experience here at Berkeley. And so I want to be very specific about that. You know, we have a lot of different opportunities for graduate student researchers to teach classrooms here at Berkeley, but yet how some of those efforts fit within your time management and your experience here at Berkeley, if they make sense and complement you. I want to be very clear. You have a collective of both students, faculty, and alumni that are willing to provide guidance around some of the difficult areas and how to feel comfortable moving through those. So let me pause here for a second. Maybe if I could, I would like to maybe introduce Tvetni Carlson. Wow, STEM focused, comes from Cantwell, Alaska. Now, I'm very excited that Tvetni is here because, you know, he's transitioned and come a long way, both, you know, obviously from Alaska, but also within his research. And I feel really, how do I say this? Reflects the narrative of an Indigenous scholar here at Berkeley. One of the sharpest points that, you know, resonates with me from Tvetni's experience is that within his first 2 semesters transitioning from Cantwell, Alaska, into a new academic setting, he had a lot of these experiences, right, of what to do, what not to do, and new things, right, in a college setting. And I'm so excited because Tvetni is now finalizing his PhD here at Berkeley, but has also been very visible in terms of what his research represents and also how he reinforces community, given that narrative, right, that, you know, coming from a home community to a place like Berkeley, but then demonstrating what this Indigenous professionalism looks like. And also, I think, really highlighting career applications that come from that as well. And so, Tvetni, I would love to introduce you to folks that are here on the session with us, if you can.
Yeah, sure. And Chedota, Tvetni Carlson, Suzedilan. What's the word? Yeditinina Kayak Chinziaden. So my name is Tvetni Carlson. How y'all doing? I'm from the native village of Cantwell, or Yeditinina, as it's known in our language. I'm Scandinavian and Athabascan, from up in Alaska. He, him pronouns, and I'm currently a 5th-year PhD candidate in environmental engineering here on campus. So environmental engineering, for those of you that don't know, just means I really like water. And I specifically really like studying how it moves, fluid mechanics. In terms of what my dissertation, what my research is about, like why I'm on campus, is I study renewable energy. So particularly the movement of the water for making power from it. I do a very traditional kind of like engineering side of things, of being like, oh, look at that. We have this like experimental setup for how to make power. I take a shrunken down version of that and double check that the computer simulations of this little device saying it'll make this amount of power is actually going to become true in real water in my lab. But the other part of my work is that this device that I'm working with is being designed for a rural Alaskan community, which, you know, it's where I come from. It's for people that I deeply care about. And my gut reaction when I first was on this project was, if we're designing it for the people, we should talk with the people who we're designing this for. This eventually led to me starting to do a lot of more kind of like ethnography readings, a lot of sociology readings, and I landed on learning from Indigenous knowledge methods for actually going forward and interviewing people who, fishermen, elders, those from the community who know about our lands, where this turbine would be, where this device that's making power would be, to particularly look at how renewable energy could impact Alaska Native subsistence, hunting, fishing, and gathering, which is kind of like core to our culture. So in that way, I've really gotten to take off with getting combined both this very like STEM, very like traditional academic focus, with where I come from. How does this actually fit in with my people? So yeah, that's kind of who I am, what I'm up to.
Thank you. And you know, so I'm a little frightened to break out of my presentation and drop something in the chat. But one thing that I mentioned is the Native Fuse Alliance, and I'm so excited for Taveni to share the details of his research and his narrative because here at Berkeley, I'm a lead, how do I say this? I'm a lead PI within the Native Fuse Alliance, FEWS. This is a new multi-institutional grant which Berkeley is a part of. My role is to highlight graduate student professionals and pipeline enhancement, right? But I kind of want to stop here for a minute, given, you know, Taveni's, share and talk a little bit more about what this means here for students at Berkeley and how this gets a little bit exciting in terms of the opportunities that you can do. So the Native Fuse Alliance is focusing its efforts on two interconnected challenges, right? Again, this is a grant that we received here at UC Berkeley. A crisis in access to food, energy, and water within Indigenous communities, and the paucity of educational and career pathways that are available to Indigenous peoples to address this crisis within their home communities. Four quick little goals on behalf of the Alliance are to address urgent fuse challenges within Indigenous communities, which Taveni obviously articulated. Co-develop integrated Indigenous place-based fuse curricula, mentorship, which is why I'm very thankful for his presence today, and practice experiences that are happening within these spaces, right? Again, the idea is to transform institutional STEM fields to be relevant and accessible to Indigenous communities. That is, again, something that I shared in the administrative rundown around, highlighting more of our worldviews within the academy and within our departments and research. Utilizing curricular interventions to recruit, retain Indigenous graduate students to pursue higher education and careers in Fuse that bring back their knowledge to their home communities, right? Now, let me see here. I want to drop the Fuse website in the chat, but maybe I could just talk a little bit more. This particular semester, since we received the Fuse Alliance grant here at Berkeley, we've now taken shape into an Indigenous Excellence Fuse Laboratory. And I'm so excited, right? Because the Fuse Alliance represents an opportunity, obviously, to reaffirm our grad students, but to really get specific around some of these Indigenous conversations of, again, how you navigate the space, things that are important to our worldview and our home communities, but then what that looks like from a career setting, right? And maybe even just to briefly include, who are some of the folks that have arrived here at Berkeley since 1971 that have also maintained this narrative and demonstrate that within their careers? And so really excited, right? The Indigenous Excellence Fuse Lab is spearheaded by Braylon Martin and Natasha Bepath. These are two new graduate student researcher positions at Berkeley to run the lab. But I really want to mention their leadership in terms of complementing folks like Taveni, who've been on campus, right? Highlighting the needs of Native students, in particular Native grad students, but then elevating IGSA, the Indigenous Grad Student Association, and also the presence of that collective here on campus. Obviously, the history of those individuals, but then what that looks like moving forward for folks like yourself that are new to Berkeley and also considering new things as well. So I know I have a mouthful, right? I hope it's making sense. Brief overview of the lab. The Indigenous Excellence Fuse Laboratory is a professionalization course that supports Indigenous academic research excellence by providing an interdisciplinary space that centers Indigenous research methodologies. This course provides structure to support interventions in food, energy, water system crises. This course introduces Indigenous professors interviewing in Fuse crisis to Indigenous grad students through co-presentations and critiques on students' work in progress. And so I'll move along here to talk about some of the new resources that we have that complement this, right? But let me get back to the lab. I want to talk specifically about a new space that's on campus, which is also a part of the IES group. But again, really reaffirming our Native community on campus. The Native American Community Center, formerly known as Anthony Hall, is a new space that's available for us here on campus. This arrived via after the pandemic and after a lot of, I believe, social justice issues really became articulated to your home space, right? Basically, when all of these social justice conversations were happening, some of this had to happen within the American Indian perspective at Berkeley. And from that came the NCC, or the Native American Community Center. This space is maintained by tremendous leadership here on campus. Fenosha Barley, who's the director of the Native American Student Development Program, primarily, geared towards undergraduates. Fenosha also works with graduate students to reaffirm space and belonging on behalf of the NCC. And so I'm very excited to highlight this new resource, right? And a couple other things, but we're very excited to grow this, to centralize culture and space and to help grow and shape some of these additional graduate experiences, right? On behalf of our Native community here at Berkeley. And so really excited to highlight the NCC and its newness here on campus. We have the AIGP office is located within the Office for Graduate Diversity. This is a fairly new initiative, right? We maintain 33 diversity community fellows. Each one of them reside in, across campus and focus in anti-racist narratives, also within their research, right? Each one of these individuals receives a stipend, and they are all housed here within the Office for Graduate Diversity. Now, some of these fellows have worked with AIGP directly in the past. Our current fellowship is Jesus Nazario, who's an ethnic studies major, has a very particular emphasis on food systems, indigenous food systems. He's also a fellow of the Berkeley Food Institute, as well as the OGD DCF collective. But I want to mention Jesus and his role on campus because, again, everything that I've shaped about, research, home communities, and career settings, I really feel that the fellowship kind of represents that opportunity to highlight who these folks are. We have had a few other members that have since transitioned and graduated, but Jesus is our current AIGP fellow, and I'm very excited to learn how we can complement his efforts, Tivetni's efforts, but also amplify some of the additional things via the Fuse Lab and AIGP programming, again, to reaffirm a safe space, but to also let you know that there are additional resources that are clearly dedicated for you and that they are very much accessible in our campus community. Two other individuals that I also want to mention from the fellowship are Marino Baca, who is a public health major, and Jeffrey Bacon, who is also a law student. He's since graduated, but also from Alaska with a particular emphasis on federal Indian law. Again, this is like the third year of us facilitating the fellowship in AIGP and OGD, but we hope that this resource, right, can better complement the grad student experience. And then again, highlight some of the important things that we come to places like Berkeley for. We have a new space that's set to open, right? I mentioned that the fellows are under operation in OGD, but the new space, which is set to open, is the Inclusive Excellence Hub. This is going to support various graduate level programming, right? Dissertation workshops, writing space. One of the more exciting programs that we have is the Path to Professoriate, which encourages students from historically underrepresented groups or identities, right, to prep and consider faculty positions during their time here at Berkeley. We have the fellows, and we also have resident faculty mentors of color. And then we have various affinity groups that the fellows work with, which are, again, much like AIGP, to elevate the student experience of our other intersectional and diverse folks that are here on campus. We're currently undergoing some renovations to the space. We're developing a backyard area, but pretty excited that this new location is going to be set to open, and we're almost final with all of the renovations, putting, I think, a little bit more of the technology highlights within the space. And so the Inclusive Excellence Hub is located at 2515 Channing Way. This will be your one-stop shop for all resources, all conversations, graduate student oriented. And so we're really excited to learn what the AIGP program via new resources can do at the Inclusive Excellence Hub. And again, reinforce a safe space for intersectional individuals that are considering a place like Berkeley. This is a quick snapshot of some of the programs that we have, and I'm going to move into the Fuse Lab programming here in a second, but big focus on a lot of the students that have since matriculated from college settings into professional goals. Believe we highlighted, there it is, the professional speaker series on the top corner. We were able to bring Walter Echohawk and Professor Angela Riley. Very, very honored to bring two of these individuals to campus, right, to highlight their student experience, but also how that narrative informs their current careers. Both Walter and Angela are outstanding leaders within the federal Indian law fields, and very excited to bring that sort of engagement on behalf of AIGP to the Berkeley community. So this is just a snapshot of previous programming, but what I really want to talk about is the Fuse Lab. And again, I'm going to open it up for a little bit more conversation, but this is a previous event that we hosted in September via Braylon and Natasha. And Dr. Peter Nelson, right? I kind of want to pause here and get a little bit into Peter's role here and everything that I've shared up to this point. So briefly, Peter is coastal Miwok and a citizen of the Great Rancheria. How do you say this? Federated Indians of Great Rancheria. He received his PhD in anthropology from here at Berkeley, right? And he's the assistant professor of environmental science, policy and management and ethnic studies. He works at the intersection of anthropological, archaeology, indigenous environmental studies, native studies, and in collaboration with tribal nations and indigenous peoples in California and abroad, works on issues of cultural heritage preservation, settler colonialism, climate change, and indigenous landscape management. Professor Nelson engages indigenous archaeology and community-based participatory research methodologies to achieve community partner goals and utilize a suite of approaches to his research, such as geography, oh my goodness, ground penetrating radar, magnetometry, and I can't even do it, LiDAR GPS mapping. The importance of Peter is alumni from Berkeley and also a former member of the Indigenous Grad Student Association. He has a particular emphasis on obviously cultural areas of anthropology, but a lot of his work here at Berkeley and the state of California is to really advocate for the, how do I say this, the cultural relationship with anthropological items that may be found. And I want to, Peter's role to highlight AB 52, right, from a indigenous cultural researcher lens to create advocacy, right, for items that may be found is pretty groundbreaking. And I kind of want to, focus a little bit about how unique Peter is to everything that I've shared so far, and also open it up for a little bit of conversation via Tevetni. But these are the kinds of conversations that we are trying to amplify at Berkeley, and the people that come here, but also do this kind of work that represents everything I've shared thus far. We were really lucky to highlight, Dr. Nelson at the Fuse Alliance, but he's one of the individuals that I like to highlight in terms of what AIGP represents, the Office for Graduate Diversity, but more importantly, the collective of students that are here at Berkeley and where they go when they're obviously finished with their research time. Let me move over into the next slide here. Marlene Watson, this is another event that we're hosting on April 19th, but Marlene Watson is quite the individual here at UC Berkeley. She's the recent recipient of the 2023 Eli S. Parker Award. And I just want to read a brief snapshot about Marlene Watson, who is Navajo Diné from the Wild Runs, Arizona, and Tohatchi, was raised here in Oakland, right? Her clans are Red House people and Mexican clan people. And her record of academic achievement, she holds 3 master's degrees, a Master of Divinity, an MS in Civil Engineering and Construction, an MS in Civil Engineering, Construction and Engineering Management, and an MA in Architecture, and 2 bachelor's degrees, a BA degree in Christian Ministry and a BA in Architecture. Now, I want to kind of pause on Marlene for a quick second because she is our up-and-coming speaker. She's the recipient of the Eli S. Parker Award, but she's also a leader here in the Berkeley community for ACES professional chapters, right? Very good friend of mine. One thing I also like to mention about Marlene's narrative within the community and at Berkeley, she was raised here in Oakland amongst the Black Panther community in her neighborhood, which I really want to mention in terms of who Marlene is, but also her emphasis and what she brings to Berkeley. She has been around the Berkeley community with such an impressive academic record since she was like 15 years old, right? And, you know, to watch Marlene, you know, now as a professional leader in various areas, you know, the ACES is the American Indian Science and Engineering Society. It's a very big consortium. But we're very excited to highlight these folks, right? Very specific, again, to the history of the AIGP program, but to also that professionalization that has always been here that also needs to be elevated so that you don't feel alone and so that you feel like there are resources that are readily accessible, right? Via folks like Marlene, via folks like Dr. Nelson, but also to Vetni. And so I want to mention all of these folks and community because this is what has been very, very specific to the Indigenous community at Berkeley and things that make folks like ourselves feel like we're not alone, right? One more item that I want to get into, and I guess we can just open this up for more of a Q&A kind of a portion, is the NAOP program. Now, the Native American Opportunity Program is fairly new. Dean Bedoya at the Graduate Division is familiar with where some of the NAOP funding does not meet the needs of students, right? That's something that we're working on. But I want to mention that in terms of utilizing, you know, my efforts on behalf of AIGP to obviously work with you to coordinate your criteria and to create this transparency around, you know, communication that you need, but to also find some additional funding sources or additional opportunities that can alleviate some of that financial burden as you arrive to Berkeley and as you're considering next steps and things for your growth and development. And so again, this is a fairly new effort, and the criteria that goes behind the NAOP program is, you know, you have to have your CDIB card, your tribal enrollment. It's more directed towards a capacity of a federally recognized tribal membership. Now, again, I think some of us are a little familiar with what that criteria is from a historic kind of a setting, but I also want to mention the newness of the Great Rancheria Fund that's here at UC Berkeley. This is a fund source that is equivalent to the NAOP program, but available for folks that may not meet the eligibility requirements, right, for a federal recognized tribal relationship. And so let me get out of chat here for a second, out of the screen, and I can put some of this information into the Q&A. And please, maybe we could open it up for some questions. I know I've talked a mouthful, but I think the 3 primary resources I want to focus on are the Diversity and Community Fellows, the Native American Community Center that's here on campus, and then my efforts to support you via the NAOP program on behalf of Graduate Division at Berkeley. And so let me drop some information on the NAOP program in the chat. And then please feel free to ask me any questions for the information you've heard so far. No questions yet. One of the things that I'm very big on highlighting, right? I know I shared a lot about the administrative role of AIGP, but I think to be very specific in terms of community and just individual enhancement, mentorship is something that I'm very big on in terms of better facilitating in AIGP. You know, college is a frightening place, more so at Berkeley, and you've heard a lot about the wonderful people and resources that make us a rich academic setting, but given our identities, the history of education within our home communities, and sometimes how that creates an alienating, feeling when you enter these spaces or while you're here. Mentorship is something that I'm very big on in terms of coordinating additional support for you, right? As I mentioned, AIGP started in 1971. We have a wealth of tenured faculty throughout the country that are in career positions, right, doing this work that are available for you via the Indigenous Graduate Student Association and also via some of the resources that we have. I mentioned the NCC. We have community dinners that happen just about every month, and those are fairly new, but we hope that central space can also reaffirm community and again, bring down more of our grad students, our faculty, and then our staff that are here to reinforce an environment of Indigenous mentorship, right? As a former student, a grad student, and a parent during that time, a student parent during that time, mentorship is key in terms of developing your own strategy for an outlet, what that looks like, but equipping you with the things that you need the most, right? And so very big on facilitating Indigenous components of mentorship, not to institutionalize those efforts, but to create, I think, a wide palette that's available for you that is very new to this space. And so, we're also able to pull from guidance from our home communities, right? Traditional knowledge keepers or folks that can also reaffirm some of the research topics that we embrace on a day-to-day basis via our identities and the home communities that we arrive from. And so I will totally stop there. I know we're getting a little short on time. Tvetni, maybe we can have a little bit of a conversation to just highlight some of the things that I've shared and maybe talk a little bit more about some of the resources that we have at Berkeley during this time.
Sorry to jump in, and apologies to Tvetni for pausing you for a quick second. Patrick, I think it'd be great for us to engage also in a Q&A. We have some questions that Nikki will be able to share with Tvetni to kind of guide a little bit the share. So if you're open, we can do that. And then in the meantime, while Tvetni is sharing and responding to Nikki's questions, the Q&A function on Zoom is open. So attendees, please feel free to start sending in your questions through the Q&A. Does that sound like a good plan, Patrick?
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Perfect. No problem. I know we were transitioning into the Q&A anyway, so I just wanted to hop in here now. But with that being said, Nikki, who's a current Diversity and Community Fellow, is here to support us with the facilitation of the Q&A and to share the questions they have created for this for Tvetni. So Nikki, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you so much, Sean, and thank you so much, Patrick, for this really, really amazing kind of show of the awesome resources that AIGP has, and I know it's helped so many people. I just wanted to kind of get the ball rolling with some of these questions. Also, my name is Nikki. I am fifth-year student in sociology here and a TCF fellow. But just to get the ball rolling, and if any other questions from the chat or just things that come up to the ear, totally welcome to kind of just go with what works. But just want to get some kind of starter questions going. And we already heard a lot about your really amazing work. I think the first question that I have for you is, what does it mean to be part of the Native community here at Berkeley?
To be part of the Native community on Berkeley to me is to get to go to the Native Center where I'm taking this call from right now, which is just honest to God gorgeous freaking building. I love having windows everywhere. Like it's not a proper native space unless you actually get to see the trees and get to have an outside patio space. Just really reminds me of undergrad. What it means to be Native on Berkeley, and particularly like I think of the Native community on Berkeley. It took me a while to start to kind of get connected because when I started, the second semester is when COVID hit, and so that really kind of created a bit of a divide for me starting off, which is makes my experience unique to say the least. But I'd say eventually the people that Patrick mentioned there, Braylon, Natasha, also other folks such as McKaylee and Jesus have all been leaders in the Indigenous Graduate Student Association. And that's where, to me, I really found my community, is getting to have people where we can all get together and just complain, man, these departments, man, these white people, they don't know what's up. And just get to have folks that like actually know where you're coming from, like people that recognize, oh, you grew up with a PO box and they know what a PO box is.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, as someone whose second semester was the beginning of COVID, definitely community wherever you can find it was incredibly important to getting through that time. I guess follow-up question, which you kind of already hinted at, what are both the highlights but also the challenges that you've experienced here so far, and how have you utilized any resources from the AIGP or just the community at large to kind of get through those kind of struggles?
Highlight, I'd say, is I made some of the best friends I've have in my life right now, being down here, getting to really talk through a lot of like really nitty-gritty kind of I guess academic questions, engineering questions, things like that that I find to be really interesting that I've getting to find and interrogate with my friends down here has always been a highlight because I love my family back home, I love my village back home, but some of them get a little bored with book questions I like. So that's one thing I like about the space down here. And of course, getting to do the work that I do. But that kind of also brings me to like one of the like kind of things that was hard about being here. Is one, just being away from home. I've had plenty of nights where I'm just like, why am I down in California? Why am I not back up in Alaska? In the snow in the mountains that actually know with the family away from dogs. All the things that I think is very like when you grow up in a space that's not really like anywhere else, that's always on in the back of your mind. And one mentor of mine really highlighted it well for me is what are you doing here that is better for your people than just serving in a soup kitchen back home? Now, of course, we don't have soup kitchens in my village, but that really highlighted to me the need to like really interrogate like how is my work down here going to contribute back home, and force me to really like have to kind of dig into the actual meat and potatoes of what I'm contributing. And I think I was able to find my happy balance in that. I think my work is contributing back home in the very least because I get to actively talk to people. That's almost been another highlight, is getting to go home and I get paid, and then I also get to pay people from my village to get to talk to them, to get to interview them as part of my work. And as I slowly progress on this technology that can hopefully contribute to the people. So Yeah, sorry. I love talking about my research. That's like one thing that's very much a highlight for me, is actually having been given the opportunity to get to just mix and match all the research on the way I have.
If I may,
That's, oh, go ahead, Patrick, sorry.
you know, and I think I had said this throughout the presentation, but what I love doing as a former Native student now within this capacity is to highlight individuals such as Tivetni, Marlene, right, and Dr. Nelson, because the academic narrative is not readily available within our home communities. And when we go back, there's a little bit of a reciprocity that happens where we show folks where we have been and what we have been talking about, just like Tivetni said, the meat and the potatoes, and re-educating, if you will, some of your home community and identities around where things can go. And so I want to mention that.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess just the last kind of starter question I have is just, you know, graduate school is incredibly challenging, both personally, intellectually. It leads to everything shifting and having to reevaluate your life and what you're doing, at least in my experience. So, you know, pushing kind of the purely intellectual side, you know, what are some things you do just to take care of yourself to make it through these kind of tough times?
I go home a lot. Um, um, like I took a month off this past winter to go home, be with family for Christmas. Took a week to go visit a friend I hadn't seen in 2 years. And breaking her new snow machine. Which that was a lot of fun. Around the bay, I've taken a liking to going hiking, just kind of like anywhere and everywhere in California, backpacking, a lot of like very kind of like hippie outdoorsy stuff. Because like I kind of grew up doing that, and I had this the gear already, and then the lab I'm a part of over there, environmental engineering, is really big, and this gets back at the community thing, is like just having people to shoot the shit with while we're all in the mountains, eating food underneath the stars, and before we go to bed, sleep in our tents. That's my escape. And cooking, always making cookies.
Cookies are absolutely key.
Maybe one more quick question, if I can. You know, I mentioned intersectionality around Indigenous topics. You know, Tivetni, what is one thing that I think you wished additional folks knew from your specific research and application that, you know, informs other identities about their narrative and research?
Like non-native identities?
Yeah.
I guess the default thing that's been really driven into me in my work is that you can't just say blank title. I mean, this is, everyone's probably heard this one before, but no one's a monolith, right? You have to take every community as its own. So while I'm speaking about Alaska Native subsistence, I've had to do a lot of work to really dig into how it's a concern for all Alaska Natives in the state, I'd say. What subsistence actually looks like is incredibly different from village to village, from family to family. And it's important to remember that you can't generalize everything, and to know where you're going from spaces where we're all united to when does the nuance matter. So like I'm Athabascan, I'm from inland. I'm from a village that's not particularly big on salmon fishing, which is not normal for Alaska Native subsistence. It's really, salmon is a huge deal for most other Alaska Natives. And so that doesn't make our subsistence any less valid, it's just different. And so that's something that I would carry for most other communities, is acknowledging like there's not one single Black America, there's not one single Latin community that's going to be representative of them all. You go to New York, you're going to be talking to Puerto Ricans. You go down to Florida, you're going to be talking to Cubans. Down here in Mexico, where you have Chicanos, that all are incredibly different experiences with incredibly different works, different reasons that they are here on this land. So that'd be my one little like kind of intersectional message, is that you can't just leave it at one space. You have to know who all is composing whatever kind of like level of the world you're looking at.
Thank you for that. Thank you. I believe oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, we don't have anything else in the chat, so if anyone else had anything they wanted to finish off with, but you had something, Patrick, so please go ahead.
Again, please utilize me as a resource for you. You can email me at pnaranjo@berkeley.edu, aigp@berkeley.edu. Let me know any questions. Please bring your support network or anyone else who may have questions. And thank you for your time today. I really appreciate that.
I guess just to finish off, Tvetni, do you have anything else you'd like to share with everybody before we kind of call it? Floor is yours, just in case.
Grad school is a big decision. I assume all the people that are currently watching this or listening in have done the application or just choosing grad school already. Masters and PhD are not the same thing. A master's is good training for really specialized stuff. A PhD is an apprenticeship for research, for you to really understand what actually does it mean to make research papers, for like making knowledge. So don't treat a PhD like another degree. And remember that Berkeley, I assume, is not your only school. The institution is important. The institution matters. That's like where like Patrick's like AIGP is housed and belongs to. But your experience here is going to be dominated by the professors that you're going to be working with, by the students, by the cohort you're going to have. So just like how I was talking about with subsistence, where you can't just have one block and then assume everything's the same underneath. Same thing's going to be true for the school that you're going to choose. Know which community you're really going to fit into, because my department's not the same as ethnic studies. It's not the same as history here.
Briefly, before we conclude, one of the questions is, how do you work through imposter syndrome if you experience it? You know, I'm big on the reinforcement. Again, that's why I asked the intersectional indigenous question. Folks still think we're invisible within these spaces, right? And that's another topic, but you know, complementing a collective of researchers and including my indigenous self within that is what my quick answer, but please, Tvetni.
That's a really good question, because imposter syndrome does suck, and every single student, I mean, you guys all probably already have experienced imposter syndrome just being in the university space. I was writing about this in my journal here literally like 3 days ago, so you're really getting me hard here. How I've dealt with it is, again, going back to community, and especially learning to trust those around me, my peers, my advisor, my mentors, when they tell me you're doing good work. And kind of like having little reminders around me of like, I've had like an undergraduate student that I mentored here who wrote me a wonderful little letter when she graduated, thanking me for like how much I've actually helped her. And those are the little messages that really get me through now, that make me feel like very happy in what I've done. But that's not quite going to be helping y'all out, because part of the trouble with imposter syndrome, I think, is that it kind of took me years of working here to kind of like build up that evidence. So the other thing I found to really help me with imposter syndrome, in addition to just like listening to those around me, kind of like collecting that bits of evidence that I've actually done good things, is also to remember there's a lot of people I've gotten doctorates that don't know jack shit. So if people are giving you the opportunity, take it, and you're going to do your best with what's given to you. Shoot your shot. Worst comes to worst. What's the word I'm looking for? you'll have something that you're not the most proud of, but most everyone around you is still going to be amazed that you've done already. You're always going to be your own worst critic.
Thank you so much, Taveni. I really appreciate you being on the panel today. And thank you so much, everyone, for your time. Again, please contact me with any questions that you have about UC Berkeley. I'm a resource available for you on behalf of the AIGP. Thank you.